Hello, this is Jon Hopwood, and this is Ward 13. Today I'm going to be putting on my veteran's hat because we're going to have a short movie about the Amherst Fourth of July parade, which I photographed. And then we're going to be taking a call from David K. Colapinto, who is the General Counsel of the National Whistleblower Center. And we will be discussing the crisis at the Veterans Administration healthcare system. John, if you'd like to roll the film. Here we go. This was the start of the parade. You're going to notice that the Democrats seem to have the biggest contingent at the Amherst parade. But we were all, yes, I'm a Democrat. We were all pooling our forces. And it was raining that day, which is not so good for a camera, I'll tell you that. Here comes the truck. I was there with my godson, Jeff Hamer, who is actually in the studio right now, watching his godfather put on his second show. Jeff, if you feel like you'd like to, come and take a seat. There's the Anti-Custer people. Happy 4th of July. It was a very good parade. Amherst is such a pretty, prototypical New England town. Oh, there's I think that's a 66 Cadillac Sedan DeVille. It's been tricked out.
I used to own a 69 Caddy.
Yeah, I did used to own a 69 Caddy. It was so big. Look at that, QE2, Queen Elizabeth II. It was quite a boat. I used to be able to sleep in the back seat. Never had to pay for a hotel room. There's Walt. He's noticing my hat, that I'm a veteran.
You're welcome.
Thanking you for my service. Thanking me for my service. Which, by the way, nobody used to thank you until after 9/11. There is a straggler. Here we go. Mary Linda Garcia. She had quite a loud contingent. There were a lot of dogs in Amherst, as you're going to see. It was supposed to be a dog show, but because of the weather, it was canceled. Now, Mary Linda, here's the dog.
There you are, boy.
I'm not sure whether it's a boy or a girl. Mary Linda is going for the Republican nomination in the 2nd Congressional District. She hopes to take on Annie Custer. Before they were called bicycles, they were called velocipedes. That woman has a very, it's not so easy to get that up a hill. Now, I was standing with Bob Smith, the former U.S. Senator. He didn't make it in time because he came from up north and he had 3 parades to go to. He was standing with some Shaheen supporters, but it being Bob Smith, excuse me, just have a little of a cold from last week. You know, the thing about Bob Smith is he's ours. He is New Hampshire, he's the Granite State. Everybody came up to shake his hand, regardless of the political affiliation. He was late, so he wasn't able to get with his group at the starting point. So he was waiting. This is the actual start of the parade in Amherst. And I told him, Senator, your people, I think it's are last. You know, they had ordered all the groups. And here comes Scott Brown. I had told him that Brown was ahead of him. And there's Mrs. Brown. And here comes Scott, the two former senators. Now watch what they do.
It is the 4th of July. I don't know who you like, Bert. You got a good picture there.
You got a good picture there. I certainly did. The funny thing is, I thought Scott Brown was going to be at the head of the parade, and when I told Senator Smith about it, he said he probably paid for it. He's not a big fan of Scott Brown. Here's Mrs. Brown. We're coming towards the end.
Happy 4th.
Something calculated about Scott Brown. Something a little cold. He's in the Mitt Romney tradition of the male mannequin as politician.
How you doing? See you again. Happy 4th. Can you have her phone sticker for you?
That was a nice shot. This was towards the end of the parade. The weather was kind in Amherst, Jeff, wasn't it? It wasn't it wasn't kind to us in Merrimack. I couldn't get any pictures in Merrimack. There's Annie Custer.
Happy 4th of July! Happy 4th of July!
Happy 4th of July. It was an interesting 4th, I'll tell you. I have one notice. The Manchester Police Department is having a community meeting Tuesday, July 15th at 6 p.m. It's at the Michael Briggs MPAL building at 409 Beach Street. That's at Beach Street and Lake. The PAL is the Police Athletic League. My alderman, Bill Barry, helped organize this. This came out of, if you remember, Jeff, we were at that ward meeting where the people were talking, brought all their concerns about the police and the crime situation and what we could do. And Bill helped organize this meeting. And I'm going to be there, and it's open to everyone. Chief Merrill will be there to take questions. Is Dave on the phone, John? Oh, patch him through. Oh, what do I have to do? Hit this? Is it this one right here? Dave?
Should be there.
Oh, I'm hitting it. It says ready.
Hey, there's a button with a phone on it.
A button with a phone on it. I see a button. Oh! It says enter number. Dave, are you there?
Yep.
Oh, let me take, I still have the cold from Dave. Let me take a little sip, and then we'll talk about whistleblowers in the VA. My guest is David K. Colapinto. He's the general counsel of the National Whistleblower Center. He's also a partner in Cohn, and Colapinto, which is probably one of the premier, not probably, it is arguably the premier whistleblower law firm in the United States. And we're going to talk about the role of whistleblowers in the VA scandal. How are you today, Dave?
I'm great, John. How are you? And congratulations on your show.
We're going to have to learn to Skype. I have a picture of you now. You were, I think this is the FBI lab report. Are you testifying in front of Congress?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I can't see it, so I don't know.
I know, that's why we've got to learn to Skype. Dave, what is going on with the VA and the whistleblowers? Recently, the whistleblowers were testifying in front of Congress about the retaliation, that they were retaliated against, harassed, even humiliated by their superiors for reporting the shortcomings at the VA, particularly at the Phoenix VA healthcare system in Arizona.
Yeah, well, whistleblowing at the VA and whistleblowing in the federal government is nothing new. And what's fascinating about this VA scandal, it has sort of like become the scandal of the summer in an election year here in Washington, where suddenly, everyone is interested in this issue, where whistleblowers have been blowing the whistle on the VA and its shortcomings for years. It just seems to be a lot of things are crossing paths at the same time that make it an important issue. But the mistreatment of doctors who have blown the whistle on quality of care issues, understaffing, favoritism, all of those types of issues which affect the treatment and the poor quality of treatment of our veterans, that's been going on for years, and the people who have stood up to report these types of things customarily get retaliated against, either fired or transferred, demoted or punished, or lose a promotion, or there have been in the recent testimony before Congress, the type of humiliation is just reprehensible.
Dave, aren't there laws to protect VA whistleblowers?
Yeah, they're federal employees, and they're protected by the federal law, which was recently strengthened a couple of years ago. And what is whistleblowing in the federal government? It's reporting the violation of a law, rule, or regulation, reporting gross waste or gross mismanagement, or blowing the whistle on a substantial danger to public health and safety. And in what we are seeing being reported out of the various VA centers as problems really fall into all of those categories, all three of those categories. And so you're now finally seeing people in the media and in Congress and in the executive branch starting to take a look at these issues, and whether they will take them seriously remains to be answered. And we have our doubts about that. The big question will be what will result in terms of improving the quality of care for veterans, and what will happen to people who blow the whistle. Will they suffer the retaliation, or will they just will it be business as usual, where they end up not getting the type of redress for having blown the whistle?
Dave, let me ask you, we're going to tackle two issues: the role of politicians in this crisis. I'd like to talk a little about New Hampshire, but how serious right now? There's two things I'd like to ask you. Why now? And how serious are politicians now are embracing the whistleblowers? Just like they did after the financial crisis, if you remember, of, 6 years ago. But how serious are they about, number one, addressing the issues that the whistleblowers bring up, and number two, protecting the whistleblowers themselves. I understand that POGO, what's that, the Project on Government, maybe you could help me. Oversight. That
the Project on Government Oversight, yes. They've been very active on the issue. And the response to their reporting that a number of whistleblowers from the VA had contacted them was to be served with a subpoena from the VA Inspector General, which is like, but think about this. Why is the VA Inspector General, why do they have to subpoena a private public interest group to get the names of the people who have been complaining? I mean, it just shows the lack of accountability, the lack of the people not doing their job over the years. This just didn't happen overnight. This has been a festering problem, and the politicians who are grandstanding now, saying, fire the head of the VA, get a new person in, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. A lot of that is grandstanding for the elections that are coming up.
Dave, you said that...
This is a problem that falls right on the doorstep of these politicians. The same ones who are screaming now about accountability at the VA have been passing budgets that have been inadequate to meet the post-war need of veterans. Let's be serious. That's what's going on here, and a lot of politicians will use this issue for their own political purposes, say, see, now I'm doing something to address the needs of veterans, when in fact their prior votes have helped create this problem. So that's, one smoke screen that is going on here. The other thing is you've got, senators like John McCain who have for years been restricting funding for the VA. And
what do you mean restricting funding?
Other than Senator McCain, who have their own agenda to privatize the VA. None of this. I mean, the tragedy here is the people that go overseas to fight in wars and come back with acute stress and PTSD and other war-related injuries are being used as guinea pigs here. And there's a rise in need for post-war treatment, but what has been the result? What are the doctors and the nurses at the VA reporting? They were reporting understaffing,
underfunding,
quality care issues, favoritism, all caused by the lack of resources or mismanagement or even worse. And this has been known for years to have existed in the VA. It's not, scores of whistleblowers just did not suddenly come forward overnight at the VA. They've been blowing the whistle for decades on these problems.
Dave, let me just interject here. Here in New Hampshire, we 10 years ago, when the Republicans controlled the New Hampshire congressional delegation, the hospital here, the Manchester Veterans Hospital, suffered brutal cuts. And if you remember at the time, the head of the Senate Majority Leader, was Bill Frist, Dr. Bill Frist, M.D. The Frist family owned the largest privately owned hospital chain in America. And it was the Bush administration wanted to push veterans into for-profit managed care programs. But the veterans, including my father, who was DAV, Disabled American Veteran, a World War II vet, kicked back terribly. But Dave, the hospital has still yet to recover. When the Democrats came back into 2006, we had Carol Shea Porter, who's my congressman, Paul Hodes, who's no longer in Congress, in the 2nd District. And then 2 years later, 2008, Senator Shaheen, a Democrat, got elected. They filled over 160 positions. Yet we still have, it's not a full-service hospital. We still have to go down to Boston area, and there's all sorts of horror stories, scheduling screw-ups. I'm going through one myself. And we have Senator Kelly Ayotte, Republican, continually voting against funding of the Veterans Administration. And we have Scott Brown here talking about privatization. they're not. They used to use the word vouchers, which during the
that's
vouchers.
what it is. It's vouchers, and what it is it's just a shell game to pass the buck along and not face the real. I mean, what is really tragic here is that we send people off to war, and you have to expect that this is going to be a cost of the war. You're going to have to treat people when they come back. It's happened in every major war, and this is one of the longest wars in American history. And people are not, people survive on the battlefield now because of body armor and other things. But the psychological impact on our veterans of being, how many times have you heard in the news of people who signed up for multiple tours of duty? All of that takes a toll when the war comes home. And that's what you're seeing now. You're seeing the effects of the Iraq war, and we still have people in Afghanistan. And this is a problem that is going to go on for years that cannot be easily cured by writing a voucher and sending someone into the private health system, which is already overburdened and will not be able to take on the special needs that are required to treat veterans.
You said that whistleblowing at the Veterans Administration has been going on for years and years. Now suddenly, I guess Benghazi wasn't playing very well on CNN anymore, and it's become an issue. Ironically, it comes out of John McCain's own backyard. And
yes, isn't that interesting? And it is that's what makes this a very fascinating political story, as well as the public policy problem at the VA, because it's an election year. Let's face it. And on one hand, it's good because people are finally paying attention to a problem that exists that people have been warning about for years. So what's going to be the result? Are people actually going to be protected? Or when the cameras get turned off and the elections are over and the hearings are done, there's going to be no change in the treatment of doctors and nurses and others who work at the VA who've been reporting these problems? Are they going to address those issues and strengthen the resolve to allow people to report these problems so that they can be solved? And is Congress going to take responsibility here and step up instead of just pointing fingers?
Dave, speaking of Congress, I understand you had a VA whistleblower in the 1990s. What did John McCain, what was his role in the Veterans Administration funding in the 1990s? Didn't he seek to take, rather than boost funding of the VA, didn't he seek to take funding away from from the New England, New York, what we'd call now the blue states? Do you know about that?
Oh yeah, that was well known in the 1990s. That was shifting resources which resulted in drastic cuts at a number of large VA facilities in the Northeast and in the North. And John McCain came up with a funding formula that was based on the shift of population. So rather than just shift resources, instead of just properly funding the rising population centers, it resulted in huge cuts.
So John McCain
caused drastic cutbacks in services to veterans in places like New York City, in Boston, and other places in the Northeast.
So what John McCain did, rather than boosting funding, he cannibalized the funding and sent the money to the Sun Belt states like Arizona.
That's right. And whenever you're in a budget-cutting situation or there's a lack of resources issue, very often you'll see an increase in whistleblowing because it impacts patient safety. It impacts, the quality of care or the quality standards, and people will cut corners, and they'll do it in a way that jeopardizes people's health and public health and safety.
Dave, can I ask you a question? we only have a couple minutes left. We're going to have to wrap up. From what I'm hearing, when I think about what happened in New Hampshire with the Republicans, you know politicians better than I do. I think that you've even been in the White House negotiating whistleblower legislation, and you've testified in front of Congress. Is it possible that somebody, a politician, somebody like Kelly Ayotte or Judd Gregg, particularly back to 10 years ago, could actually trade off the funding of the hospital in New Hampshire for some type of political favor? Is something like that possible, in your opinion?
Well, I don't know if something like that has ever happened or would happen. I mean, that's outside of what I don't know, have any specific knowledge of that, but politicians are very good at saying one thing and doing another, and there's enough blame to go around to both parties. The idea that whistleblowing is a nonpartisan issue, and the reason the doctors are coming forward isn't because they dislike Obama or that they dislike some Republican senator. They care about the patients, and these are our veterans who are coming home from war. So
who've given all they can give.
Blame to go around, but the question is going to be, what is Congress really going to do to fix this problem? Is it just going to be window dressing? Is it just going to be hoping that the whole thing goes away once the elections are over or once the summer low news period is over? It remains to be seen.
Okay, Dave, I'd like to thank you very much, and I'd like to, we need to learn how to Skype in the future, because I'd love to have you on again. There's so much to talk about. And how are the Nats doing?
They beat the Orioles last night, and I see that our Red Sox came back last night as well.
Yes. Thank you very much, Dave. Have a good day. Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Well, there you have it from somebody that knows, an expert on whistleblowing. When I've read many articles. Well, I guess I have to turn this off. I've read many articles. It all comes down to funding. Every article you read is about funding. Funding of the Veterans Administration. All these cover-ups, all these tragedies are the result of a lack of funding. Now, and this is what I'd like to say to Senator Kelly Ayotte. You voted, how many times? Twice this year, not to fund the Veterans Administration. While you're traipsing around the world, the new Cold Warrior, Diana of the new Cold Warrior right. You need to put veterans ahead of your political ambition. You need to vote for funding for veterans and for the veterans in Manchester and New Hampshire and northern New England who rely on the Manchester Veterans Hospital. Well, Manchester, this is Jon Hopwood, Ward 13. We'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in.